Thank you all for coming, first and foremost. What if the end of a life could actually contribute to sustaining life? It's a big question, and it might sound a bit poetic or counterintuitive in a talk about death, but that idea is at the heart of what I'm here to share with you today. Now, I promise this isn't going to be a 30-minute doom and gloom conversation. I'm here to talk about something hopeful, something life-giving. My name is Dax Patton, and I'm honored to be here representing Spirit Oceano Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to redefining burial traditions through sustainability. Today, I want to introduce you to an idea that is both ancient and revolutionary, one that has the power to transform not just how we say goodbye, but how we give back. I'm talking about full-body, non-cremated remains burial at sea. Over the next half hour, I'll share a bit of history, some eye-opening facts, and a few real-world examples of sea burials. By the end, I hope you'll see why burial at sea could be the next tide in green burials. For centuries, people across different cultures have practiced burial at sea. It's not a new idea at all. In fact, ancient mariners often believed the ocean was a gateway to the afterlife, a vast, mysterious expanse where souls could find peace. The Vikings, famous for their seafaring, sent off their honored warriors in burning longships, believed the sea would carry them to Valhalla. In Japan, some coastal fishing communities laid their loved ones to rest in the ocean, a very fitting end-of-life practice for somebody who spent their entire life by the sea. And even the ancient Greeks sometimes performed rites at sea, trusting that the waters would safely ferry their souls to the underworld. And of course, we can't forget naval traditions. Even today, many navies, including the US Navy, have protocols to give sailors and veterans a dignified farewell beneath the waves. So burial at sea has long been a revered practice, deeply rooted in respect for both the individual and the natural world, essentially a return to the earth, or in this case, the water, in its purest form. But as time went on, we lost that connection. Modern society drifted toward land-based burials and later cremation as the default. The practice of sea burials gradually faded in modern times, except in special cases. Why? Well, we built an entire funeral home industry around the idea of coffins, tombstones, and cemeteries. Sea burial came to be seen as something rare, maybe for sailors or stories in movies, while everyone else was expected to go into a plot of land or be cremated. In doing so, we created end-of-life practices that often prioritized tradition over sustainability. We ended up with methods that consumed valuable land, used toxic chemicals, and emit significant carbon into the atmosphere. So isn't it time that we rethink this? Isn't it time we ask ourselves, is there a better way? A way that not only honors those who have passed, but also gives back to the world they leave behind. Let's talk about the environmental reality of our current end-of-life practices, because this is where the need for change really hits home. Conventional burials and cremations have hidden environmental costs. For example, embalming fluid like formaldehyde from traditional burials can leach into the soil, and casket production consumes wood, metals. We also have dedicated large areas of land to cemeteries, which, while important for memorializing like loved ones, are often not land preserved as green spaces, but and rather maintained with like pesticides and irrigation. And then there's cremation, often thought as the clean alternative, but it's far from carbon neutral. Quick show of hands, and I know there's some people in here that I know and that have talked to me. But quick show of hands, how many of you knew that cremation has over 400 pounds of CO2 in a single cremation? Some of y'all.
Okay. That's a good.
Crazy though, right? To put it in perspective, it's like driving your car from New York to Chicago, your gas-powered car. Now imagine the impact of millions of cremations each year. It's like having an invisible trail of carbon across the country. And what about traditional ground burials? Well, they emit about 250 pounds of CO2 per body, and that's on average and without considering all the other environmental impacts, the land use, the manufacturing and transport of coffins and headstones, the maintenance of cemetery grounds, and the toxic embalming chemicals that end up in our earth and water. We essentially have industrialized the way we handle death, and it leaves a pretty large impact for each of us. Now contrast those numbers with a full-body, eco-friendly burial at sea. A sea burial uses no land, requires no embalming chemicals, and involves minimal fossil fuel, chiefly the boat ride. The estimated carbon emissions for a sea burial, mostly from the boat's fuel, are about 25 pounds. 400 pounds versus 25 pounds. That's a huge difference. It's clear that burial at sea could possibly be the responsible choice for the planet. It offers a way to significantly reduce the final environmental impact when we exit this stage of life. So given these challenges, and I want to be optimistic here, with the status quo, what can we do? This is where we look to the past to inform a better future, bringing back burial at sea in a modern, thoughtful, and accessible, and I really want to emphasize that, accessible way. Forgot a couple slides, but that's a good one right there. Okay, got it. So let me introduce burial at sea as a scalable, eco-friendly alternative for the modern world. This is not about inventing something new, crazy. It's about reviving a practice that works with nature rather than against it, and adapting it responsibly for widespread use today. At Spirit Oceano, our mission is to make burial at sea a mainstream, accessible, and environmental responsible choice for anyone who wants it. We believe that everyone should have the opportunity to return to nature in the most natural way possible when their time comes. That means not only having the option, but ensuring the option is done right with respect and care for the environment. So what are we going to do differently to ensure sea burials truly uphold eco-friendly values? Well, we've developed an approach that is deliberately designed on marine ecosystems. For example, I think I'm still good. Biodegradable shrouds. Cool. Biodegradable shrouds. So instead of using coffins or materials that could pollute, we'll use shrouds, covering that use dissolved material that dissolve naturally in the ocean over time. They're made of natural fibers that break down completely and safely, leaving nothing harmful behind. Marine safe materials. Every element involved is made of materials that won't disrupt the ecosystem. No plastics, no metals that could leach into chemicals. Everything is chosen to work with nature, not against it. Even the weights used to ensure a body sinks are made of natural, benign substances like salt or sand, putting sand right back on the ocean floor. These eventually disperse harmlessly. So, regenerative impact, the idea that the body itself, free of embalming chemicals, becomes part of the marine food web over time, essentially giving nutrients back to the sea life. In this way, a sea burial can be viewed as a life-giving act. Your final act directly seeds into new life in the ocean. This is handled very respectfully and in a controlled way, of course. So in short, we're making sure burial at sea is not just respectful to the person, but also beneficial or at least neutral to the planet. It's about returning our bodies to the earth or water in a way that honors the circle of life. You might be wondering, how does this practice actually work today? What steps are involved in a modern legal burial at sea? Don't worry, it's regulated, safe, and dignified. Let me break it down briefly. The journey begins with the family or individual doing pre-planning, working with a sea burial provider, professionals who specialize in this type of service. Together, they plan the ceremony and handle the necessary paperwork. A suitable location in the ocean is carefully chosen. In the US, that means picking a spot that's 3 nautical miles offshore and at least 600 feet in depth, typically. All full-body sea burials in the US are overseen by the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, which must be notified following the sea burial. This planning phase ensures that everything is set for a smooth, legal, and respectful ceremony. The ceremony itself. So on the day of the burial, the body is typically wrapped in a biodegradable shroud or put into a biodegradable coffin and weighed with something like, again, we want to encourage sand, put it right back on the ocean floor to ensure it sinks readily. The family and a certified officiant may choose to attend, and with crew and or captain present, the shrouded body is gently released into the ocean. This is done with the utmost respect. Often there are words said, maybe prayers or poems. Just like any funeral, only the setting is a bit different. The vessel and the crew adhere to U.S. Coast Guard regulations throughout the process, meaning all maritime laws are followed and all protocols and safety procedures are followed. In solemn, it's heartfelt, and it's safe and orderly. In many ways, it's very, very much like a graveside service, but the grave is the ocean and the sky is the cathedral ceiling above you.
That's sweet.
After the ceremony, within 30 days, the provider or captain officially reports the burial to the EPA. This is an important final step with transparency and record keeping. It documents who was laid to rest and where, the coordinates, enough that there's an official record. This way, everything is accountable and above board. And families have peace of mind knowing the laws are followed, and even events, is recognized by authorities. So that's the process in a nutshell. Proper planning, a dignified ocean ceremony, and thorough compliance with regulations. It's not a radical new concept at all. It's really about bringing back a practice that previous generations may have just took for granted, and doing it in a way that fits our modern and legal and environmental standards. This is essentially humanity reconnecting with nature at the end of life, rather than isolating ourselves from it. And it works, both emotionally for families and environmentally for the planet. In fact, this isn't just a theory or a fringe idea. It's already happening in the world today and growing in popularity. Let me share a couple of examples. To really understand the potential here, it helps to look at who's already doing this. I have 2 case studies to share with you to show how burial at sea is not just a fantasy, but a viable practice that's gaining traction. Our first example comes from the private sector, New England Burial at Sea. This is a company founded by Captain Brad White back in 2006. It has grown into one of the leading providers of sea burial services in the United States.
Wow.
What Captain White started nearly 2 decades ago has now conducted thousands of burials at sea for families. They built up operations with over 86 vessels departing from 73 ports across all coasts here in the US. That's a pretty extensive network. But what does that tell us? It proves that there is a real demand for this kind of service. Thousands of people have chosen to say their final farewells on the ocean waves rather than on land. In fact, the majority of the ceremonies performed by these providers are cremation ash scattering, where the ashes of our cremated loved ones are released into the water. This has been the more common approach, largely because public awareness and resources for full-body sea burials have been limited. Many people didn't even know full-body sea burial was an option at all. However, Captain White's operation is seeing a growing interest in full-body burial at sea. The key takeaway from New England burial at sea is that people are willing and eager to choose a burial at sea when they know it's available. This model has demonstrated the feasibility of private sea burials. Families are satisfied, the process is respectful, and it's done in compliance with regulations. It's a great proof of concept that a private business can offer these types of burial alternatives successfully. In other words, it's viable and it's happening. Sea burial just isn't just an idea. My second case study is a very different context, the US Navy. Long before private companies like Captain White's existed, naval forces has upheld the practice of burial at sea, particularly for those who served at sea. The US Navy has a well-established tradition of offering burial at sea for active duty members, veterans, and their eligible family members. This can include the scattering of ashes or even full body burials into the ocean. But think about it. If the Navy can regularly perform burial at sea with precision and honor, it shows that this practice can be done at scale and with great respect. These ceremonies are conducted with full military protocol, the American flag, the honors, the whole 9 yards. And they often occur from a naval ships at designated sea burial sites. It's a powerful testament how meaningful this form of farewell can be. Many sailors, feel a deep connection to the ocean, so being laid to rest there is especially important. Now, the Navy's program is obviously specific to military personnel and is carried out under particular logistical conditions. And yes, there are some logistical challenges like timing and location constraints when you're coordinating a burial from a naval ship. But the infrastructure and the precedent already exists. The Navy has the procedures, the know-how, and the legal clearance to do this on a routine basis. What's missing outside of military context is wider public awareness and accessibility. In other words, for the general public, burial at sea hasn't been a mainstream option simply because most people haven't seen it in action. I'm about to show you. Unless they have a Navy connection. And they don't know how to go about it. But the Navy's example shows us that, with the right guidance and support, sea burials can be done safely and with dignity on a large scale. And so this is a video of a Navy burial. It might have sound, but I've been looking at DoD footage. This one's from 2012. And you see, you have a military officer here kind of doing the last words and all the things. You actually see the table in the background. Those have urns on it with ashes. So he's doing the final readings and telling, about the, deceased here. and then you'll see him turn to, the crew right there and give the orders to release the body into the ocean. I've looked, at ones from, well, real quick, you'll notice how there's holes in certain sizes drilled into every side of the coffin, and that's to, help it sink to the ocean floor. But I've looked at DoD footage. I mean, they've set the bar for burial at sea, the US Navy. I've looked at DoD footage from 1940s, the 1960s, and today, and this being the most recent, and they look almost identical. It's wild.
Huh.
So, we'll go ahead. Next slide, please. And next slide. Sorry. Hold on. These real-world examples, one from the civilian world and one from the military, prove that burial at sea is a viable and meaningful solution. So how do we take this from a niche or special case scenario and bring it to mainstream? Let's talk about the future we envision and how to get there. Looking ahead, our vision is simple. We want burial at sea to be as accepted and accessible as any other end-of-life option. We believe that it's time to expand the menu of choices for people beyond just burial and cremation. We want to include environmentally friendly alternatives on an equal footing. Here's how we see the future and what we need to focus on to get there. We're going to go back a little more. Accessibility. We need to make sea burials an option, in more places and for more people. This means expanding access, particularly in coastal communities. Today, if you live in, say, the middle of the US, sea burials might not even cross your mind, but even for those living on the coast today, the option may not be readily available or affordable. Our vision is to work with policies and partnerships to make full-body sea burials affordable and logistically feasible for anyone who wants one. Maybe that looks like establishing more certified sea burial providers around the country or creating programs that help subsidize the cost for families. We want to choose a sea burial to be as straightforward as choosing a cemetery plot or a cremation service is today. A huge part of our mission is public education. We have to break the stigma or the mystery that surrounds burial at sea. A lot of people simply don't know that it's an option, or they have a misconception about it. Maybe they think it's illegal or it's just for the Navy. Spirit Oceano is partnering with marine research institutions and environmental organizations to study the long-term effects and benefits of sea burials on the ocean ecology. By building a body of research and data, we can show policymakers and the public that this is a safe, even beneficial practice. We're also launching outreach campaigns to share these facts and stories, things like social media initiatives, community talks like this one, and working with the press to raise awareness. The more people hear about it and understand it, the more normal the idea becomes. Part of the education is also addressing emotional and cultural concerns. We need to show that sea burial can be just as healing, reverent, and accessible for memorializing a loved one, as any traditional service. Advocacy. Lastly, we need to work on larger policy and industry level. This means advocating for the updated regulations that make sense for sustainable practice. We want to collaborate with lawmakers to ensure the legal framework supports eco-friendly burials. For example, simplifying the permit process for sea burial as long as they meet environmental guidelines. We also aim to engage with the funeral industry, funeral directors, hospice providers, et cetera, to encourage them to include and offer green options like full body burial at sea. And importantly, we want to partner with conservation groups to jointly promote policies that prioritize sustainability and end-of-life practices. By building a coalition of voices, environmentalists, funeral precision professionals, policymakers, researchers, we can push the movement forward and make real change. It's about creating a future where choosing a sustainable death care option is encouraged and facilitated at every level. So in short, our vision is a future where your final farewell can reflect your values of caring for the earth. We're working to tear down the barriers, be they logistical, financial, or cultural. Whatever is currently making burial at sea seem out of reach for most people, it's time to make this compassionate green practice a normal choice and not just an exotic exception. It's an ambitious vision, but absolutely achievable, y'all. And this brings me to my final point: how you can help, how we can work together to make this vision a reality. We can't do this alone. Making burial at sea a widely available green alternative will take a community of change makers. I see a lot in this room. And that's where all y'all come in. Whether you're an individual, part of an organization, a researcher, an investor, there are ways to join this movement for sustainable end-of-life practice, and here are a few. If you're part of a university research institution, consider collaborating with us. There's so much we can study, from the environmental impact of sea burials over time to the social attitudes about them. By working together, researching projects or case studies, we can gather the data we need to further validate the eco-friendliness benefits and refine best practices. Your expertise can help inform guidelines and influence policy. And for the students and faculty out there, this is a relatively untapped field for thesis and dissertations, just saying.
This time,
Environmental, if you represent an NGO focused on marine conservation or sustainability, we'd love to partner with you. We have a common mission in protecting ocean health. By joining forces, we can amplify each other's impact. For example, co-hosting educational events, cross-promoting campaigns, or integrating sustainable burial education into a broader conservation program. Your endorsement and experience can lend weight to making sea burial a recognized conservation-minded practice. Investors, if you're an investor, a philanthropist, or a donor passionate about climate action or environmental innovation, your support can be a game changer. Funding is needed to expand operations and make sea burial services available to more communities. For instance, we're starting up a sea burial grant program to help fund ceremonies for families and communities that could use it. Contributions can fuel our public education campaigns and help us develop better biodegradable materials and technology. By investing in this cause, you're effectively investing in cleaner, greener future for the funeral industry and everyone else. Even if you don't fit one of those categories, everyone can help by simply spreading the word. Talk to your family and your friends about what you learned today. Consider taking the Spirit Oceano Pledge, a simple pledge to support sustainable end-of-life choices. It's on our website. I wrote a free ebook about sustainable burial at sea. It's with the pledge, you get it for free. By pledging, you stay informed with our updates and become part of the community that's pushing for change. Share information on social media, volunteer-related environmental events, or even just keep an open mind about your own plans. Every conversation helps normalize the idea that we have choices when the time comes. In essence, let's turn this awareness into a movement. There's an open sea of opportunity, pardon the pun, for innovation and positive impact here. I invite all of you to be a part of it. If something today sparked your, go back one more slide. If anything, reach out to me. Check out our website. My email is dax@spiritoceano.org or go to spiritoceano.org. Just to learn more, get updates. We truly welcome the support, whether it's brain power, people power, or resources. Together, we can create a future where our final act on Earth is one of renewal, not destruction. question.